in my car, going too far, never coming back again. Tired and worn, I woke up this morning, found that I was confused. Spun right around and found I had lost the things that I couldn't lose. The beaches they sailed to build their hotels.
It's to for folks to come in and get settled. Oh, look at this beautiful Waimea rain. Love it. So we'll get started, I would say, in about 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. There's water in the back. Please, if you have not yet signed in, it's really, really important. Go ahead and use your phone if you have a and shoot, and then go ahead and enter your information. That way we can make sure that you get notifications of the third panel series. And also, we have a question bank. So our friends from Department of Water Supply, as you know, and they're here again today, they answered many of our questions, some of it that we weren't able to attend to all of your questions, so they did the good work of responding to your questions. So if you want to have access to that public information, our crowdsource bank of questions, please use this QR codes, or if you must, go ahead and sign in and write. Unfortunately, the last VI forum, we had such great attendance, about a little less than 200, I want to say, but we couldn't read all of the names that were written or every syllable. So that's the reason why we're encouraging to use this QR code, so we make sure that we get your name and your emails correct. Thank you so much. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. Mahalo.
Aloha. Welcome to this gathering here. He just said hui pu. We are the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club, and what we're doing here is gathering our communities to give them awareness in the different controls and the different distribution of water in our area, in the northern part of this island, and specifically Waimea. Those concerns are very dear to all of us, and with the new developments and with our agriculture expanding, it becomes really close to every home that we have. We want to welcome you from the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club, and
Aloha, everybody. Aloha, thank you so much for coming. This is an awkward time to be here. There are families, there's kids shuttling, there's families, there's shopping and all kinds of stuff and getting dinner ready. So we're especially grateful that you took the time to come. It means a lot to Waimea, and I think it'll mean a lot to our future. We're grateful for these two gentlemen who joined us today, came from Honolulu to join us and provide us with knowledge that we can use to understand, as well as to make decisions and going forward. So we're grateful on behalf of the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club. Thank you so much. And our partners. And our partners, Mauna Kea Education Awareness as well. And Scott Nagata, who is from the South Kohala Action Committee. Do I have that right?
Scott Nagata. I'm at the South Kohala Community Development Plan Action Committee. It's kind of a long thing there. Anyway, so it's all the South Kohala. We do appreciate you coming here. Oh, sorry. We do appreciate you taking the time out here to come and listen to the State Commission, there's long titles here. State Commission on Water Resource Management. Okay, so there we go. And do appreciate them taking the time to come here and speak to you about that. And we do appreciate all of you coming and do appreciate you coming here to and showing your concerns and interest in the Waimea water resources. And again, thank you for the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club for really being the driving force on this, and we do appreciate them all.
on our registration tables, you will find QR codes, and we have the QR codes to register, but we also have QR codes for the last meeting we had, and it depicts the questions and the answers from the different community, different organizations that we brought in last time, and that was at the county level, the different offices. So you can get the QR codes there and see what the questions were. We also had some leftover questions from that county level, and they have answered all that extra questions. So please go get it from that QR code. And I think that's all. Yeah.
Aloha. My name is Nicole Kovaluanakalea, and I'm a Waimea community member. Very proud to be here. I'm actually stepping in with to help and support the Mauna Kea Education Association or organization, Action. Pua Case could not be here this evening. She knows she would be here, but we really wanted to make sure that we ground ourselves in what we started the last time. And so we have our chant, Mai Ka'i'a Ka'aina. But before we start, how many of you guys were here last time? How many? Awesome. See, you guys heard him already. You guys know him. So before we do that, just take a deep breath. Breathe out. Look outside and look at the vai of Waimea. And it just reminds me also of Kupuna Lindsay, and I'm thinking about Pomai right now too, and her Ohana. And Waimea meaning all things pertaining to water. And so I just really want to bring that into the room, that it's not a coincidence that these meetings are here. It should be here. We are the bearers of the water. We are the water keepers. We are the ones that bring in the sponge. And so I want you guys, before we chant this, think about the pu'us of Waimea and think about the top of the pu'us and what you see. Every time we drive, they're so beautiful. But the source starts there at the kualono, the things that we cannot see, the unseen, and all the activity and action that is happening above us. And from that is the kuahivi, where the trees are all forming, and they're absorbing all of that, and that is the sponge that is feeding us. And that sponge then comes down and feeds into our kula lands, into the kulaiwi, which is our homeland where we live and we step every single day, the bones of our ancestors right here. And that is the kulaiwi that turns into the kula vai that takes that water all the way down to Kauai through our rivers, Waikoloa, Keanui Umano, I can name them all, Waiaka, Kohakohau, and all of these beautiful rivers that without them, we would not be the thriving human beings that we are. Water is our human right, and it should be something that we talk about very, very intimately. So I really want to, again, mahalo all of our county who come together and our organizations, and I really want to honor this chant because it's a very simple chant, but it reminds us, again, of the system that we live in, that goes all the way down to the ocean, and we are part of that. And if we are not understanding that cycle, then we are only breaking those cycles, and we are part of the problem. So I hope that through this chant, we can remember that we are part of the solution. So, mai kai eka aina, please. You guys can read them out, get them out, and we have a rhythm to it. Let's try it. Big rivers, small rivers. Everybody matters. One, two. Yeah, aloha. You know, I called out Pomai's name earlier. Yeah, that wasn't a coincidence. She is definitely one of the keepers of this place, the stories. A teacher, a captain, a navigator, a daughter, granddaughter of this place. Eo, mahalo Pomai.
Kia aloha nui a kākou alohano. I think Kuvalu did a very good job at explaining all of the different cycles of water here in this Aina of Waimea. And as I look out here into this crowd, and into the gathering that is here today, I think about all of those who are here now sitting in this space 3 and 4 generations in. And looking at those who Ohana has been the caretakers, and I'm going to ask you to take a look outside of the back door. I'm going to ask everybody to kuiluna and take a look outside the back door as I finish this mana'o. Okay, I think I said kuiluna, so I'm going to ask you guys to do that. Please kuiluna and take a look outside. The reason for that is because you don't always get to see this. And it's really important that we take note in this day and time. Who was the weather this morning in Waimea? What did it feel like this morning in Waimea? And the reality of that is that who we felt this morning as far as the coolness or the warmness in our skin, who we saw this morning and throughout the day in the form of clouds, dictated that this was going to be here, that this kupuna was going to show up, that this kupuna was going to come, and that this ua was going to start to come so that all the mosses and all of the lichens and all of the grass and all of the sedges and all of the bushes and all of the small trees to all the big trees to all the understory would be able to catch some of this, apple some of this vai, and give it and distribute it to every place that it needed to go. Before you sit down, and before you turn around and look back this way, because again, the doorway is the frame of something that is pretty magnificent that's happening right now. Remember that picture. Remember that image. So that every time we come to meetings like this, we have in our mind who it is that we're all here for. Collectively, we're here for us because the development affects us, because some of us are absolutely and integrally supportive of. Some of us have many questions. But at the end of the day, if Waimea, that is in an amazing drought right now, cannot see images like this continue, then what is it that we have? Simple question, right? So with that said, mahalo nui for intentionally standing and for looking and for seeing and for making a connection. This mele that was written many, many years ago, as Kuvalu defined, does a beautiful job at creating the imagery so that we understand that the water that we drink when we turn on the tap, that it comes from atmospheres above of everything that was described, that it comes from every atmosphere below our feet that was described, and that we have a responsibility in all of the things that we do as community members to malama the entirety of that cycle. Not just the one we can see on under our feet, not just the one that we walk on every day, but all of it. And so, mahalo nui for being here. I'd also like to just say on behalf of this aina, this wahi of Alaohi'a, which is where we are today, mahalo nui for continuing to come to this space and for continuing to participate in these conversations of water, of vai, because this is an essential vahi or aina to have that conversation. The term Alaohi'a, or the name Alaohi'a, was given to the people of Waimea and to this aina of Waimea by Reverend Lyons. And one of the reasons why he gave us that name was because, if you can imagine, this aina was prolific with ohi'a growth at one point in time. And that ohi'a, when it rained, just like this, or even more, because it was so profoundly abundant, its scent was released into the air. Imagine that you could smell the a'ala of the subtle a'ala of the ohi'a of this aina. And that it was the rain that enabled that to happen. And so with that said, hopefully, Alaohi'a, this vahi, this place, that imagery through the door will continue to help to remind us in all the work that each of us do, because it's so important that we all do whatever work that it is that we're doing. But as Kanaka Waimea, who live in this kulaiwi, in this kula vai where the water leaves up Mocha and goes down below. We call Waimea home, all things pertaining to water, and that image should always be in our mind. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. Want to acknowledge again these two kumuvaivai, Kuvalu, Anakalea, and Pomai Bertelman. They help bring these names to our consciousness in this room today so that we can remember not only these names, but how we are connected to these places. And when we're connected to these places, then we remember our kuleana and our relationship. So mahalo. Let's say that all together. Allah, ohia. Allah, ohia. Mahalo. So my name is Mahina Poi Poi Paishan, and I have the great honor and privilege of supporting these two gentlemen, our Kumuvaivai, our guest Kumuvaivai, our honored speakers. I want to just share with you folks that tonight's conversation is going to be formatted similar to the Vai Forum #1. So there's lots of information that's going to be coming your way, and we're going to soak it up. We're going to soak it up, just like how Ohia capture water. We're going to soak up that knowledge. And we're going to break up we're going to ho'omahele, or break up the conversation so that we can think of our questions, we can ask questions, and so that we can kind of like organize all of the input or information that's coming. So you will have 3 different times for which you can ask questions from these two experts. So we're going to get going now. To my right and to your left is Dean Ueno. He is a Stream Protection and Management Branch Chief. He's a graduate of Western Washington University. I think you have a fellow Western Washington University person in the house. With a bachelor's degree, which he's earned from Western Washington in environmental science. He began his career as a hydrologist with the Commission on Water Resource Management's Planning Branch, assisting with updating the Hawaii Water Plan and other program initiatives. Very important, kuleana. In 2002, he joined the Commission's Stream Protection and Management Branch, which had just been established in response to the Supreme Court's decision in the Waiahole contested case hearing. Mr. Ueno currently serves as the head of the Commission's Stream Protection and Management Branch, which oversees the statewide regulation of surface water and development of in-stream flow standards. So before I turn and introduce Aaron to my left, to your right, I'm going to ask Dean to quickly share what vai are you feel a deep connection to here in Hawaii, and why?
Well, that's a tough one. So I grew up in Aiea on the island of Oahu, but I would spend a lot of summers and Christmas times on the island of Maui. Grew up in Paia with my mom's side is from Paia, but I spent a lot of time, either swimming in the ocean or playing around catching fish up in Iao Valley. So I don't know, I forget if I was relaying this story to Aaron, but I originally wanted to be a forester. I told my parents I wasn't planning to come back to Hawaii after college, but I found myself really gravitating to the stuff that I knew, the local, just whether it was through scouting and the plants, having knowledge of the plants or the geology or the geography of Hawaii. And then I just happened to get involved in water. I got into a water quality lab up in school, and so I got an internship with the Water Commission. And so I just really gravitated to water. And, right out of college, I got a job with the commission. And so to say where I'm connected, I feel comfortable, whether swimming in the ocean, playing in the streams, even when I can, after like a day like today where we spend all day in the field, draw a bath and just soak myself in the tub for an hour or so. It's just, to me, just relaxing, and that's where I, find my peace, I guess. So really vai anywhere. It's where I find my happy place. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that you're from Moku of Evan, Oahu is like known for its groundwater. So many streams and Ahupua'a named after vai. Awesome. So he asked to refer to him as Aaron, and he's also known as Dr. Aaron Strout. He is a Stream Protection Management Branch Senior Hydrologist. Aaron is a hydrologist with the State of Hawaii's Commission on Water Resource Management and affiliated graduate faculty at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management. He received a BA degree in biology and anthropology from Washington University in Missouri, and received interdisciplinary MS and PhD degrees in biology with a certificate in water systems, science, and society from Tufts University in Boston. His research focused on hydrology, and human water interactions across socio-ecological systems, including the interactions among geological, ecological, and social systems on water resources. I can see why you were drawn to here, to Hawaii. In his postdoctoral studies at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Aaron focused on climate and biological-driven shifts in watershed hydrology and freshwater ecosystems with a focus on tropical environments. He works closely with university faculty and students across the state to improve our understanding of Hawaii's freshwater resources, freshwater biota, and management of water as an important public trust resource. He's currently leading efforts to establish in-stream flow standards statewide that protect traditional and customary practices, aquatic ecosystems, and balance in-stream and non-in-stream uses. He's led efforts to expand the monitoring of freshwater resources to support water resource management research that improves watershed modeling and understanding. So Aaron, can you share, a vai that you feel closely connected with and why?
So I get the honor and privilege of monitoring vai across the state, and there aren't very many streams that I don't touch at least once a year. A few on the Nepali coast, but we're going to try and figure that out. We're going to boat in or helicopter in this summer. I love putting on a snorkel and mask and sticking my face underwater and looking at what's living in there and quantifying how much water is available and looking at surface water groundwater interactions. Where am I most closely tied to? That's a tough one. I don't think I could nail down an island.
How about today?
Well, so I was in Waipio Valley today and Waikoloa Stream, and I was up in the mountain, and I like touching water.
Okay, so we're going to get started. The first section of our time together is going to be led by Dean, and he's going to give an introduction overview of the role and responsibilities of CWRM, or Commission on Water Resource Management. Yes, I will. Yes. So as Dean gets set up with his slides, I want to make sure that you folks know that we have note cards. We are really encouraging you folks to write your questions. That's how we're going to be receiving your questions, and we'll be posing your questions with our guest speakers. So if you would, at both registration tables, there are note cards, index note cards. Please write the note cards there. Write your questions on the note cards there. Thank you. And again, Dean, we have about, let's say, 10 minutes for this part. 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Aloha and mahalo for having us here tonight. We're honored to be here, and anytime you folks have questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us. So today, I'm just going to give an overview of the Hawaii Commission on Water Resource Management. So who is the commission? We go by the acronym CWRM or CWRM. You'll hear a lot. And my apologies, this is a PDF, so it's a little, trying to figure this thing out. But CWRM in a nutshell, so back in 1978, under the Constitutional Convention, there was an amendment in Article 11, Section 7, which mandated a statewide water resource agency. And really that was to make sure that there was protection statewide, that there was consistency across the state in how we protect our water resources. At the time, no disrespect to the boards of water supplies, but they had a mission to produce water for drinking. And so, there's a conflict there, right? The more water they produce, the more customers they could get, the more money they made. And so that, along with the private entities, need to be kept in check. And so that's where the commission was created. And so under statute, the Hawaii State Hawaii Water Code was created in 1987, and we're kind of pseudo-administratively attached to DLNR. Our chair, which you'll see in a bit, for the commission, or for the Board of Land and Natural Resources, also serves as the chair for the commission. And it was funny, I was just looking at this date and with my bio. So I started working for the commission in 1998. And so when you think about that, we were only 11 years old. Really a young entity in terms of agency ages, right? Some of you have like the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, been around, I think, since pre-statehood as in a different form, aquatic resources similarly. But really, when I started, we were only 11 years old. And so it's been very interesting to see the evolution of our laws over this time, up until today, and you'll see a little bit of that in our presentation. We have a 7-member commission supported by staff. We're currently at about 20 staff, and we administer the state water code. And so we regulate all waters of the state and all water users. Kalamai. So this is our 7-member commission. These are the decision makers, so we report to them. We support their decisions. As I mentioned, Dawn Chang is the current chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources, and she also sits as the chair of the Water Commission. The director of the State Department of Health is an ex officio voting member. That is Dr. Kenneth Fink, but usually his designee, Kathleen Ho, will be serving on the commission. The other person is Joanna Sito, that may attend the commissions instead. The other 5 members are appointed by the governor and approved by the state senate. So Dr. Lawrence Miike was a former Department of Health director. Aurora Kagawa Viviani is a professor at the University of Hawaii. Wayne Katayama currently works for Kauai Coffee, but he's long history in various water systems, primarily on Kauai. Paul Meyer used to work for Department of Water Supply, on Maui, as well as Maui Land and Pine, so a lot of water system experience. And our most recent member, Hannah Kihalani Springer, from Big Island. So she's our lo'ea. Per the state water code, we must have 1 member with substantial experience or expertise in traditional Hawaiian water resource management techniques. And so Hannah Springer is that person. So when we really boil things down, the commission is really responsible for water quantity. We regulate how much water can be extracted from the ground, from aquifers, and how much water can be diverted from streams or surface water. Water quality issues are under the jurisdiction of our Department of Health. So in an issue like Red Hill, which on Oahu, in Halava, DOH is taking the lead in that. And we're more of a supportive role in terms of data collection and any other resources that they may need help with. Let's see, back in 2019, I believe, or so, we were working on an update to the State Water Resource Protection Plan, which Aaron will get into a little bit later. But as part of that effort to update the Water Resource Protection Plan, we really felt that we need to come up together with a vision and a mission statement for the commission. And so our mission that we adopted is to protect and manage the water resources of the state and provide for the maximum beneficial use of water by present and future generations. Our vision is to see flowing streams, sustainable aquifers, and functioning watersheds for the use, enjoyment, and benefit of all. And then what you see on the bottom there is our motto, Ke Kahu Waipono, which was translated for us as the trustee who oversees the rightful sharing of water. So this is our organizational chart. We have a staff of, on paper, 33 positions, but as I mentioned earlier, about 20 are filled. Our operating budget is about $4 million per year. And we have an additional capital improvements project budget of about $2 million a year. We've been trying to go back to the, to the legislature to get about $2 million every year to support our development of deep monitoring wells. And so these are wells that go through the freshwater lens, through the brackish water, and then down into the salt water. And I don't know if Aaron has a slide on this, but really we're tracking the top of the freshwater, the top of the transition zone, and the top of that salt water. Is it moving up? Is it shrinking? Where's the middle of the transition zone going? Is it moving, rising, or hopefully it's lowering? But really tracking all those aspects. As you see here, the commission sits at the top, that 7-member commission. Below that, we have a deputy director that we report to. And this was recently updated, so we've gotten rid of our survey branch. Originally, when the commission was created and the first time we went through a reorg, that survey branch was supposed to support data collection and field monitoring for ground and surface water, but over time, they really focus more on groundwater. And so really today we have our planning branch, our groundwater, I think it's called now a groundwater branch, before it was groundwater regulation that you see there, and then our stream protection and management branch. And so that's where Aaron and I are from. I know there was some desire to talk more about groundwater, so Aaron's gonna get into that a little bit, but our deputy did mention that if we do wanna do like a webinar, later we can offer that to you folks where we can come back or at least provide an online forum to present more information and answer questions. One more thing I did want to mention, so our operating budget, about $4 million a year, a little over half of that is for just staffing costs. Our biggest budget item is our joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey. And we run, did you get into this in your slides? So he'll get into it a little bit later, but we support a number of stream flow gauges, as well as monitoring wells and a couple rain gauges. We're the biggest cooperator with the USGS in the state, and so that's really where a bulk of our budget goes to, and Aaron will get into that a little bit later. So I just wanted to touch on water law in Hawaii, and as I mentioned, it's been very interesting from the time I first started in '98. I've been with the commission for a little over almost 27 years, and so to see that evolution of water law. So back when the Constitution was amended under Article 11, Section 1 provides for that all public natural resources are held in trust by the state for the benefit of the people, right? The public trust. In Section 7, and this is what was amended, was that the state has an obligation to protect, control, and regulate the use of Hawaii's water resources for the benefit of its people. And it also said the legislature shall provide for a water resource agency, which is the commission, which shall set overall water conservation quality and use policies, define beneficial and reasonable uses, protect ground and surface water resources, watershed and natural stream environments, establish criteria for water use priorities while assuring pertinent rights and existing riparian uses, and establish procedures for regulating all of Hawaii's water resources. And so under the public trust doctrine, it imposes a dual mandate of which we have the responsibility to balance and make sure that, number one, we're protecting the resource, right? Protecting the aquifers, protecting the streams. But we also, as it says in the state water code, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're maximizing reasonable and beneficial use of that water. And so, there's an affirmative duty to take the public trust into account whenever we're planning and allocating those water resources, and to protect public trust uses whenever feasible. And so over time, So this is just a graphic that shows we must balance both the public trust with that reasonable and beneficial use of water. And so over time, these public trust purposes have been defined for us or clarified. So under the first Waihole decision, the Supreme Court set out that these first three, 1, 2, 3 purposes are part of that public trust and rise to a higher level. Environmental protection, right? Maintaining water in its natural state, the exercise of traditional and customary Native Hawaiian rights, and then water for domestic purposes. So it includes like bathing, watering your lawn, watering your fruit trees or some things in your yard, right? Showering, washing clothes, that sort of stuff. And then there was another contested case hearing on Molokai, which added the Department of Hawaiian Homeland's water as another public trust. And the other fifth, kind of what you hear, if you talk to our deputy, which I agree with, another public trust purpose that we have a responsibility to protect is our pertinent rights. Those are rights that were established under the Mahele and are tied to the land. And so that's something that we're dealing with whenever we set water management areas across the state. But however, there are no absolute priorities between uses under the public trust. And so that's where, while I mentioned that these do rise to a higher level, it always comes back to balancing that public trust with the reasonable and beneficial use of water. So we're required to ensure uses that are reasonable and beneficial, but really, we tend to, that really becomes more important when we get to a water management area, and that's where Aaron will get into a little bit more, but when we get like a well construction permit to drill a well or a stream diversion works permit, we're concerned about the use, and we look at these things that are listed, right? The purpose, what is the water being used for? Is it a justifiable quantity? Making sure you're not overusing. If you're starting a farm, right? Making sure you're not using or taking too much water from the stream or from the aquifer for how much ever crops you're planning to grow. Are your practices efficient? Have you considered practicable alternatives? Is there reuse water available nearby? Are there other sources that you could depend on? Is it consistent with the public trust? And then is it consistent with state and county land use plans? While we do consider a lot of this, typically, this really comes more into question under water management area regime, where there's more competition for water resources, there's more contention. We look at these a lot more closely. So this becomes much more important in a water management area. The Supreme Court also put out in Waihole that we really need to be aware and abide by this precautionary principle. And so basically in the absence of full scientific certainty, we have a duty to take action to ensure that the public trust is protected and it's protecting the resources and uses from harm. And so the approach that we've taken when I was helping to develop the stream protection and management program following Waihole was really, we have to make the best informed decisions based on best available science. We can't wait for the perfect data. And so that's really where Aaron's been taking that and running with, taking the ball and running with it across the state and developing in-stream flow standards. We gather the best data we can. We come to the public for help. Have we considered everything that we need to in developing an in-stream flow standard? And we take that to the commission for decision making. But really, we're trying to make the best decisions, making sure that we're watching out for the public trust, but moving forward and making sure that we're allowing for that maximum reasonable and beneficial use while still protecting the resource.
Dean, before you get into your final slides, just want to encourage community members, if you're ready with your question, please just go ahead and raise them, and we have volunteers that are going to help pick them up, because we're going to get into about a 5 to 7 minute Q&A shortly. So just raise your hand with your index card and they'll come around. Thank you, Dean.
And that's it. You want me to do the? have it. It's probably the end of this. All right, mahalo.
So while we're waiting for, since I have the mic, and while we're waiting for your folks' questions, I do actually have a question. So what does maximum, how do you actually apply the definition of, say that term again, maximum
Beneficial and reasonable use.
maximum beneficial and reasonable use. So can you just walk us through, so when you receive a proposal to develop a particular area, how do you actually use that term and apply it in your decision-making process?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I mean, bottom line is, when it comes down to it, if you have a very limited resource and it comes down to, do you want water for drinking, traditional and customary practices, protection of our stream fauna, right? Those are going to outweigh water use for other purposes, commercial, industrial, agricultural. But we got to make that balance, right? We want to eat, right? People need to survive. People need to work. People need to live, have jobs. And so it's a very careful line that we walk in, balancing all these uses. Right? So yeah, it does get contentious.
So while I'm waiting for some of your folks' questions, what are some of the major water issues that South Kohala is faced with today?
I think, I mean, it's the same problem everywhere, right? As we experience climate change, Kohala, South Kohala particularly, is the drier side of the island. Same with like Ewa, Waianae side on the island of Oahu, south side of Kauai, West Maui. We're experiencing lower rainfalls. As I think Aaron's going to get into his presentation, we're seeing the lowest stream flows on record. Climate patterns are changing. It's a problem that everyone's going to face. And so I think as we're talking to Scott with the Department of Planning, the county Department of Planning, where the rubber meets the road, it's the county. It's you folks, right? You don't get into the dual met. So one thing we've been talking about a lot lately internally is the original intent of the code was to designate the entire state as a water management area, to give the control to the state to control water resources. But there was a fight with county home rule, right? And so there was a balance or a compromise made that, okay, we're gonna county home rule, but if there's contention, if there's threats to the resource, and it's all laid out in the code. There's 7 criteria for groundwater and I believe 3 criteria for surface water. But if those criteria are met, the state can petition, or anyone can petition to designate a water management area. And so that's where, if you're not designated now's the opportunity to really do planning, to really come together as a community, whether it's the government, the county government, you folks on the ground, in your communities, to come together and plan properly how you're going to build your community, right? And how you're going to utilize those resources. So right now, the power is in your hands.
Mahalo. Maybe we have time for 2 more questions. Just a little plug. So we, as County of Hawaii, we still have an opportunity to provide input into the county's general plan. So that is the mechanism for which we can help to shape the direction of development here in Hawaii. Okay, so I think you're gonna appreciate this question. As one of the most important agencies protecting Hawaii, it seems that you folks might be in need of more funding. how can the community help advocate for additional funding to CWRM? What are your ideas for community to help support advocacy for more funding?
Talk to your representation in Oahu. We have great support in the Water and Land Committee for our agency, but the purse strings are controlled by other people. And so as much as you can advocate for DLNR or our agency specifically, that does go a long way, because sometimes we're just 3 lines in a 1,000-page budget.
Just to reiterate what Aaron said, I mean, reach out to your representatives and senators. You folks have some of the strongest senators on the island, most powerful senators, and so, particularly on the Water and Land Committees, and so that'll go a long way in the legislature.
Okay, final question for this section, and then we'll turn it over to Aaron. This is regarding water supply, water levels and water supply. So context, water levels with what are, how will the Waimea community ensure that there's, I'm kind of like summarizing, adequate supply for future Waimea growth? How does community work with agencies and departments to assure water level, appropriate water level and water supply for the future, for Waimea's future growth?
I'll get into it.
Okay, Aaron's getting into it. Okay, let's transition. While Aaron's setting up, I want to just remind all of you, for whatever questions, if we don't have time for all of your questions, keep them coming, by the way. We will provide the questions to these 2 gentlemen, and if they can't answer them, then they will find someone within CWRM, and if it's more appropriate for another agency or department, such as Department of Health or Department of Agriculture, or maybe County Department of Water Supply, they will then refer us to the proper and appropriate agencies and departments. Thank you. All yours, Aaron.
All right, I have 100 slides to go through, so I'm going to talk a little quickly, but most of them are pretty pictures, so hopefully that's okay. Can you take off the cover? Excellent. I'm going to go over the CWRM programs for you. We have, as Dean mentioned, 3 main programs: Planning Branch, Groundwater Regulation and Stream Protection and Management. Planning Branch develops comprehensive long-range plans for the protection, conservation, and management of states' water resources. And I'm going to go into Planning Branch now. The Planning Branch implements the state water code through long-range planning and agency coordination. And when we talk about agency coordination, we talk about across governments and from bottom up. So the county at the community development level feeds those plans into the island-wide development plans. The island-wide development plans feed into what's called the water use and development plan. So each county's Department of Water Supply is responsible for their water use and development plan. Those water use and development plans get wrapped into what's called the state water plan, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So it is within your community to influence your plans and your island's water use and development plan. The Planning Branch also does water conservation, shortage, and drought planning across the state. So the Hawaii Water Plan is made up of a bunch of plans. It's not one plan, it's multiple plans. At the top are the Water Resource Protection Plan, which is what the Water Commission is responsible for. It defines how much we have and how do we protect it. The Water Quality Plan is produced by the Department of Health, and that sets policies for protecting water quality. And then at the middle level, we have the state water needs. How much is needed for the state with the State Water Projects Plan, and which is developed by our engineering division within DLNR, and then the Agricultural Water Use and Development Plan, which is developed by the Department of Agriculture. And then the counties produce their plans, and those are all fed in they all have to be consistent. So we have county-wide demands, land use consistency, what are the county needs? And then it all gets wrapped up together. So the planning branch also supports resource assessments, basically developing or answering the question, how much water is available and how will we meet our needs? That's through updating hydrologic unit delineation, groundwater sustainable yields, and supporting or amending surface water standards in our administrative rules. The Water Commission does support, whether not financially, but through collaboration, watershed management across the state. We support hydrologic studies monetarily, or we advocate for them through the legislature, including climate studies, looking at rainfall trends, evapotranspiration, hydrologic studies related to recharge updates and numerical groundwater modeling, and then baseline data collection. How much rainfall is occurring? What's its distribution? Monitoring stream flow, monitoring groundwater levels and aquifer trends. That's through USGS and through internally within the Water Commission. So most recently, USGS has produced a whole suite of studies across the state with commission support. We also support the Hawaii Mesonet project, which is real-time climate monitoring network through the University of Hawaii. And if you haven't logged into the Hawaii Climate Data Portal, do so. You can click on any one of these dots on your island, pull up an image of the station, and look at what's happening right there 5 minutes ago. So it is a great tool that we are using to update hydrologic models, to inform agriculture, to inform fire prevention, a whole suite of issues. So I suggest Googling Hawaii Mesonet project. We also support studies on long-term trends, such as long-term trends in rainfall or evapotranspiration, groundwater. This is from Fraser and Jambaluka, looking at climate trends on Hawaii Island over the years. So most recently, the period 1983 to 2012, you can see this is a significant dry season decline in rainfall over this period. So what is some of these other plans, like the Agricultural Water Use and Development Plan? We just approved its update a couple months ago, I think. And if you're interested in agricultural systems, this update ties both the state's Department of Agriculture, their system, as well as any private systems that have been studied over the last few decades. All the information associated with it, including the types of crops being grown, the amount of land, the state of the infrastructure associated with it, reservoirs, that sort of thing. So if you're interested in ag systems, go to that plan. Dean mentioned that we have this bifurcation with management areas and non-management areas. This is just a quick overview of water management areas across the state, as it's kind of like a planning venue for determining how much water gets used. Almost the entire island of Oahu is a groundwater management area. The entire island of Molokai is a groundwater management area. And then within West Maui, the Iao Aquifer is a groundwater management area, and then the entire Lahaina Aquifer sector is a groundwater management area. And then our two surface water management areas are the Navaeha, Waihe'e, Waiehu, Wailuku, and Waikapu streams, and then all the streams in West Maui are surface water management areas. And essentially the difference between designated and non-designated areas is in the designation process, the commission actually issues water use permits. That is defined as the amount of water to meet the specified needs, existing specified needs, and then as new uses come on board, the evaluation of whether there's sufficient quantity to support those new uses. Outside of water management areas, we issue stream diversion works permits that are meant to protect the stream, and well construction permits, which are meant to provide for the construction of wells that meet specific standards to protect the aquifer. I'm gonna stop there unless you want me to dive into groundwater. Okay, we'll just go into groundwater. And I apologize, I'm a stream guy. I love getting wet. Groundwater doesn't get wet. So this is not my kuleana, but I will do my best to answer any questions. So we have over 5,000 wells across the state. Actually, one of the most heavily drilled locations is Pahoa down here, and we get the most applications for groundwater development in that area. The groundwater branch also regulates or monitors and establishes sustainable yields. They have specific well construction and pump installation standards or permits that are issued that meet specific standards. Groundwater, if you're not familiar with the geology of Hawaii, I'll quickly go over it. We have 3 types of groundwater bodies: perched groundwater bodies, dike-compounded groundwater bodies, and then the freshwater lens, the basal lens that sits on top of brackish water. Here in Kohala, all 3 are important to you if you don't know it. The perched water bodies they're the primary contributor to base flow for all your streams. So they might be small, but they're very important. Dike-compounded groundwater, held up to high elevations, those are what feed the Parker Ranch deep well, the Waimea deep well. Most of the Lalamila wells, I believe, are in at least some sort of high elevation dike structure. Most of the wells that are feeding the community here are developed within the high elevation zone. The basal lens is down here, and some of the wells closer to the coastline are utilizing the basal water. This is our most recent update for mean annual groundwater recharge from the U.S. Geological Survey. And I suggest there are 2 recent publications that are addressing groundwater issues through the U.S. Geological Survey. One is from Izuka et al. In 2018, and then Kane et al. 2024. And I'm just going to briefly talk about them. So this is a water budget model to develop groundwater recharge estimates at very fine resolution based on the most updated rainfall evaporation, soil conditions, land cover data. And I also want to say that there are other ways to estimate groundwater. So so on Oahu, we have the Schofield Plateau, where overlaying layers of Mount Ka'ala and Ko'olau are impounding water to high elevations. We have a similar region here where the southeast rift zone of Kohala and lava flows from Mauna Kea were kind of overtopping each other, and that's also leading, that in that dike zone of the southeast rift zone supporting high elevation groundwater. So back about 25 years ago, the Waimea Water Service studied the gravity anomalies in the ground, and they field measured or tried to estimate based on that how much water was contained, and then looked at recharge and recharge with fog drip estimates to quantify groundwater recharge in this way. Slightly different method. I just want to say that there are multiple ways to look at groundwater. Kane et al. Produced estimates of changes in the hydrologic cycle with future climate conditions. So if you're interested in what might happen, again, in 50, 60, 80 years from now, that is the best source for information. This is just a map of estimated anomaly of mean evapotranspiration to rainfall, that ratio under saturated conditions. Essentially, this area there's not going to be a change. It's the bottom line. Although up Mauka, especially on the leeward parts of Mauna Kea and Hualalai, we're going to see drier conditions or more evapotranspiration relative to rainfall. So how is groundwater developed? We have 3 basic well types: shafts, which are primarily on Oahu and Maui; tunnels, which there are quite a few tunnels on Kohala, which are horizontal wells. So this is a tunnel tapping into a high elevation groundwater body. Some of the tunnels on Kohala are actually just tapping into perched water bodies. A shaft is more of like a incline where water was pumped out from the top thin layer of a basal lens and then typical deep well that's tapping into the basal lens is what's most common here. So these are the wells mapped in the South Kohala area, color-coded by system or use. And I apologize if the colors don't come out so well, but the county wells are green, and then Hawaii Water Service is in blue, and our, and I say our being both USGS and the Commission on Water Resource Management, our monitoring network is in orange, and then all the irrigation wells, they're more brackish, non-potable wells are in purple. I just lumped them all together. The Waimea Aquifer System is also a sector. It's one of the anomalies, but the sustainable yield right now is 16 million gallons per day, and that's based on recharge, and I'm gonna get into what that means. There's also neighboring Anahumalu and Mahukona, Honoka'a, and Waimanu are depicted here. The boundary kind of runs just south of Kaihai Road for most of the way. This is the most recent pumpage data supplied by the county for the Parker Deep Well and the Waimea Deep Well up here in town. Most of the time there's sufficient surface water to meet demand, but occasionally there is pumpage from these wells. So those are the two wells up here. Now I'm going to talk about the Parker and Lalamila wells down here. Again, slightly higher in elevation, tapping water inland. So and I'm going to just lump them into Parker wells and Lalamila wells for simplicity. This is pumpage over time, and as you can see, over time, the Parker wells have actually dominated most recently in terms of volume. These are just some statistics. I'm not going to get into them, just for you to have. Here's some other mid-elevation wells, and what's important to understand here is the blue line is pumpage and the maroonish line is chlorides. So we track chlorides in our wells to understand the response of the aquifer to pumping. So in some cases, as you pump groundwater out, there's upconing, and that upconing is that movement of that transition zone, that brackish transition zone into the freshwater lens, and that freshwater lens then becomes a little bit saltier. Now, most of the time, the wells, because of construction standards, our understanding the aquifer thickness, that sort of thing, we don't have significant upconing, which would affect the potability of the water. But that's not always the case. And one of the reasons why we designated Lahaina as a groundwater management area is that we have significant upconing that really is affecting the use of most of the wells. But that's not here. So we have chlorides on the right axis and pumpage on the left axis, and for a couple of the wells. So how do we establish what a sustainable yield is? We have estimates of recharge based on rainfall and fog drip inputs to our groundwater system. We have estimates of runoff and recharge, the ratio of runoff to recharge for every aquifer system. It's dependent on the geology and the land cover. And then we have estimates based on right now, most of the estimates are based on the robust analytical model, which determines what fraction of the recharge can be developed. So in this hypothetical situation, the sustainable yield is 44% of total recharge, not rainfall, recharge, and 56% is moving into the either streams or discharging into the ocean at sea level or subterranean submarine groundwater discharge. So these ratios, this 44% to 56%, that's going to depend on the geology of the area. These are your sustainable yields across the island. We're here in Waimea, and this is just for your use, for your understanding. This is our current total pumpage for the Waimea Aquifer System over the last 15 years. The green line is the 12-month moving average. The blue line is pumpage, the red line is our sustainable yield. Pretty close. I will put a plug in our former survey branch, which is now under groundwater. Our survey branch has been monitoring groundwater in Waimea and throughout the Big Island for about 20 years now. And we have a team that comes to the island quarterly for a week, and they are monitoring aquifer health across, mostly on the leeward side, focusing on both deep monitoring wells, which are wells that penetrate the basal lens into the saltwater, as well as the top of the freshwater lens. So again, these are the monitoring wells nearby that I pulled data for. And before you freak out, I want you to understand the axes here. So we have in black the Waiaka tank, and its axis is on the right. And yes, that is 1,000 feet above sea level. So this is water level that is much higher than the basal lens. So it's high elevation water. Yes, we've seen a 14-foot decline, but that only represents 1% of the height of the water. So not hugely worrisome. The Kanehoa water levels on the left axis right here, we've seen about a 2% decline for the last 20 years. And these are at different elevations. I want to just point out, so Waiaka tank is here, Kanehoa is here, so a little bit higher here. Keeping track. Here's some other groundwater monitoring in the area, fairly stable over time. So we talked briefly about our budget and our monitoring needs across the state, and we need about $2 million a year to produce one deep monitoring well, and we need maybe 100 deep monitoring wells across the state. I mean, if we are lucky to get 3 in the next 10 years, I would say we're doing okay. But the next deep monitoring well we would like to add is in the Waimea aquifer. That's right here. We actually have a contract for its development, I believe. I think there's a contract for its construction. But that's not, I'm not involved with that. So it should be constructed soon.
And Aaron, I think pretty soon we should pause for some questions.
Okay. There. That's my question slide.
Perfect. Why don't you join us on stage, and then we'll take questions. And thanks to the volunteers for collecting the additional cards. So we'll start off with this question around groundwater. Is there a calculation of the quantity of water contained in each aquifer, and how are they measured? I'll restate the question. Is there a calculation of the quantity of water contained within each aquifer, and how are they measured?
I did have a slide about that. So it's based on the precipitation, geology, land cover, underlying structures within the island. Yes, there are equations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the sustainable yield map that Aaron showed basically is how much can sustainably be pumped from each aquifer. So those are available on our website.
And the caveat is that with the robust analytical model, sustainable yield assumes equal pumpage across the aquifer.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How is the community consulted? Who and how is the community consulted when a proposal for a well is put forward? And what environmental factors, if you could restate, what are the environmental factors are considered before a decision is made?
So it is a little bit dependent on the size of the well and whether the well is located in a management area or not. Wells for small domestic use, somebody's well for their house, tends to, as long as they meet well construction standards, is not in a water management area, and there is sufficient There's not likely to be any interactions with streams, nearby wells, other uses, and Kapa'akai analysis has been conducted. Those wells meet a specific threshold for a construction permit that is already, that's done administerially, like via staff. If those standards are not met, such as if it's in a water management area, if it's for a larger use, if there are potential impacts, that goes to the commission.
Okay, next question is around groundwater and spring water. So what is the state doing to capture groundwater that is flowing underground and flowing to the ocean? A second question, is spring water being captured for human use?
So the state does not develop water. Pre-water code, when the Division of Water and Land Development was around within DLNR, they were involved with water development and managing irrigation systems and that sort of thing, but not anymore. We are simply a regulatory agency to protect water resources.
Just to clarify that, so DOWAD was, Division of Water and Land Development was the original entity. With the establishment of the State Water Code, we kind of split, and so we're the Water Resource Protection Agency. I believe our engineering division still does develop water sources for state agencies. So that's just a clarification on that.
Thank you. And the second question, is spring water being captured for use, particularly for agricultural use?
Yes.
I mean, we have registrations for stream diversion works that capture spring water, but
exactly where?
Yeah,
Of examples.
There are 1,500 or 1,300 stream diversions, which I'll get into.
But again, can you please just restate again what is the mechanism or the permit application if someone wanted to utilize water from a spring area for agricultural use?
That would need a new stream diversion works permit unless it was developed as a well. So if somebody sealed it and put a pipe into it, that would be considered a well. But if it's surface water captured, it would be a stream diversion works permit, which we would issue.
Thank you. Okay, this is a very local question. What can the Commission on Water Resource Management do to help Hawaii Island Department of Water Supply, County Water Supply, get the damaged reservoir repaired? There's a...
We've been a strong advocate for that reservoir. Unfortunately, I think the legislature has only given a small amount of money on an annual basis for reservoir maintenance and repair through a grant system, and so you can...
Yeah, so that's a new program that was recently established by the legislature through the Department of Land and Natural Resources Engineering Division. So I think they're still trying to get the program off the ground, and I don't know exactly how much is available, but that is something that reservoir owners can apply to help upgrade their reservoirs. What's been interesting, and I mentioned the evolution, right? Waihole was basically saying that reservoirs, unlined reservoirs in particular, if you're moving water from one aquifer or watershed to another and it's going into a reservoir, it's treated as waste. But in other areas, well, now especially, right, the commission is starting to see that reservoirs have a value in capturing those high flows. It's a little tricky where, like in Maui, which Maui relies heavily on surface water, and so when they do capture those high flows, it's almost too turbid, too dirty for the county to use. And so, those are the types of things that we got to try, as climate changes, we got to try and figure out how to best utilize our water, capture the water that we do have, while still making sure that we protect those uses, right, for traditional, customary, domestic uses, all those things, and as well as balancing with other agricultural and other uses. But again, taking advantage of those high flows and capturing it in reservoirs, making sure that the reservoirs are lined, that the water's not being wasted. But it does recharge the aquifer too. That's That's another consideration, right? So that's where as we deal with climate change, things are going to get more tricky, and we have to figure out creative solutions to all of it.
Thank you. We'll take 2 more questions, and then we'll ask Aaron to proceed with his final section. When will Waimea Aquifer become a designated water management area? And please remind us, what are the benefits of becoming a designated water management area?
That's above my pay grade. What are the benefits? Essentially, the commission takes control over end uses, and there's a permitting process that regulates the end uses. So if there's conflicts, the commission ultimately gets to decide what the water gets used for.
My preference is to avoid designation at all costs because we have a very limited staff, as you saw, and it puts a heavy burden on us. And so it's gonna, if it were designated tomorrow, it's gonna take a long time, right? We're dealing with Lahaina, with West Maui. There's a pending petition for Waianae on the island of Oahu for designation from the County Board of Water, the Board of Water Supply there, Honolulu Board of Water Supply. So, we'd rather the water supply departments, the developers, the community, figure out the best way to use your water resources, work at the county level and address the issues there. So we don't need to come in and regulate because it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be easy.
Mahalo. Final question, and then Aaron's going to proceed. What determines the possible decommissioning of a well? What would determine the possible decommissioning of a well?
Primarily, it's up to the well owner. If they no longer have a use for the well, we do have a abandonment process where that well needs to be sealed. We have been trying to get funding through federal channels, which, now it's a little up in question, to help us to go out and look for wells that have not been used or have been abandoned but have not been sealed, because that's the best way to protect the aquifers. They gotta seal with grout. So ideally, getting the well sealed. So there's a process in our state water code for abandonment. But again, we're trying to get funding. We're trying to chase down well owners that have abandoned their wells but have not sealed them. And
Thank you for your question, and I'm going to encourage one of our volunteers to bring the index card so that we can proceed with the presentation and we can record your question. Thank you.
All right. Next section is my bread and butter, stream protection and management. We have 376 perennial streams, about 1,300 stream diversions we've abandoned or sealed or discontinued, about 100 over the last 10 years. And our job is to protect aquatic life, recreational values, traditional and customary practices, et cetera. We have a surface water regulation section, so that they issue stream diversion works permits. That's the permit necessary to withdraw water from a surface water source, and then a stream channel alteration permit, which is what's needed if you're going to alter the banks or stream channel itself. Then we have an in-stream use protection section. That's me. We do surface water hydrologic monitoring. That includes streams and ditches. We analyze current and historic USGS data. We conduct biological assessments and coordinate the U.S. Geological Survey cooperative agreement. Right now, we fund about 47 stream gauges, 9 wells, and 18 rain gauges across the state. We also internally monitor about 85 locations continuously and another 50 partially across the state. 1,300 stream diversions. They're primarily located in windward areas. They range from a giant grate in a stream sucking all the water to a dam that's maybe diverting a little bit of the water to a tiny little seep that's captured in a 2-inch PVC pipe, or just a hand-built rock wall in a stream channel for the Po'ovai. In South Kahala specifically, there are 3 systems: the Waimea irrigation system, also called the Upper Hamakua Ditch, the Parker Ranch system, and the Hawaii DWS system. So this is the distribution of your systems. Also, Lower Hamakua Ditch kind of is in the neighborhood, but maybe not directly affecting Waimea. The Parker Ranch pipelines take water from Alakahi, Waikoloa, and Kohakohau, and the Hawaii DWS withdraws water from Kohakohau and Waikoloa. The upper Hamakua Ditch starts at Kawainui, Kawaiki, a couple of small tribs, and then Alakahi, Waimea, and brings water down to reservoirs. So I will start with the Waimea irrigation system. If you've not been to Kawainui, there's a dam across Kawainui up on the top. And then there are a number of minor diversions that bring water in. This is the Kawaiki intake. So the way the system operates, water is diverted from one stream, dropped into another. Then there's a dam and an intake control gate to take water along the ditch to the next stream. And for the vast majority of flows, there's always flow remaining in the stream as it's operated. So here's the, on the left-hand side, this is the ditch flowing into Alakahi, and then the stream is under a bridge right here, and this is the intake, and then the rest of it goes downstream. The upper Hamakua Ditch feeds the Waimea Reservoir. This is just some general information if you're interested in. The end uses are metered by the Department of Ag, and it hovers around 0.8 to 1 million gallons per day. But on this graph is also rainfall. So as you can see, when it rains, people don't irrigate. So demand goes down. So the Parker Ranch system has 3 intakes. They are primarily pipelines. So there's like on Waikoloa, there's 4 pipelines, I think, that start at this dam, and then they merge to form a single pipeline. This is the Kohakohau intake and feeding this pipeline. And then this is the Alakahi dam, and intake is right here. And then the Hawaii DWS system. This is the marine dam on Waikoloa. Water's flowing from left to right. This is kind of the gravel trap that keeps material out of the pipeline. This is the intake that feeds Reservoir 2. This is downstream view of the dam. This is Kohakohau stream intake for the Waikoloa system, the Hawaii DWS system. This is downstream view of the dam. Similar intake right here with the gravel, what we call a gravel trap, a trap that keeps material out of the pipeline. And that feeds a series of reservoirs. This is Reservoir 2. This is Reservoir 2 2 weeks ago. Reservoir 1 that's not in use right now, which needs to be upgraded. Reservoir 3, this is overflow from Reservoir 2 back into the Kohakohau. And I think that's all I wanted to say. This is just a generalized schematic. Sometimes it makes things easier to understand. When you have multiple systems drawing from the same sources and you have meters and stream gauges, where they located is important. The Water Commission currently funds a stream gauge on Waikoloa Stream above the Parker Ranch intake. The Hawaii DWS is reactivating the USGS station above their intake, both on Waikoloa and Kohakohau. And there is about 125 to 150 million gallons of storage, but if there was more, if Reservoir 1 was upgraded, there would be more storage. This is from the Hawaii Water Audit Program. So because the Commission has not designated this area, we don't require a big, scrutiny. We don't scrutinize all the end uses, but we do have a water audit program that makes sure that all water systems, public or private or military, follow basic standards for detecting leaks and understanding where there are system losses, whether they're realized or just accounting errors, that sort of thing. This is a map or a graph. The top graph is daily production, so the amount of water produced for from the surface water system in blue, from the Parker Ranch Deep Well in gray, and the Waimea Deep Well in orange for the 2012 to 2021 window. As you can see, the majority of water sourced in Waimea comes from surface water. The bottom graph is the same data, only in percent format, if you're into statistics. And then we have mean, median, minimum, and maximum values for all these sources for this time period. Again, for your enjoyment. And then within the water audit program, we also get basic quantities for various categories of use. So agricultural use on the DWS system. This is not ag use on the Department of Ag system. Government use, residential use, commercial use over this period. So we also have statistics down here on those uses for your use. So the in-stream uses. So the in-stream use protection section develops in-stream flow standards, or the minimum environmental flows, the amount of water that has to remain in the stream. And we have these criteria set up with the water code that identifies all the things we have to look at. Fish habitat, recreational values, ecosystem maintenance, aesthetic value, navigational potential, in-stream hydropower, impacts on water quality, the conveyance of water for downstream uses, and Hawaiian traditional and customary practices, or Hawaiian rights. We have to do that in this sometimes vacuum of hydrological data. Now, we've gotten better over the years at expanding the network of monitoring stations across all 376 perennial streams. I mean, we currently have maybe 120 stream gauges. Of course, in Waimea, Kauai alone, we have 7 just for that one stream. The watershed is well covered in gauges. But that's because we need to know how much water is up in Kokei, how much water is on this tributary, how much water is downstream from the hydropower plant simultaneously. So developing the hydrology is critical, but also hugely challenging. Also, developing the data sets that go into in-stream flow standards, hugely challenging because we don't have a lot of sources. There are not a lot of people sticking their head in the stream. The best sources of information often come from historic documents. So we have the Hawaii Stream Assessment, for example, that was produced in the early 90s that categorized all ranges of uses related to recreation and habitat and historic structures and that sort of thing. But again, one of the reasons why we don't set in-stream flow standards tomorrow on every single stream is because these data are lacking. But we have amended in-stream flow standards at over 80 locations across the state, depicted here in red dots. The green watershed or hydrologic units are colored that way because we have amended in-stream flow standards in that hydrologic unit. The hydrologic units in blue, we have developed in-stream flow standards, but for some reason or another, they have not been amended by the commission, whether the recommendation was contested or it's in mediation or that sort of thing. And then the red are locations where we are in active study. We are gathering data in those hydrologic units to develop a recommendation. So the hydrology, how do we know how much water is flowing? I'm gonna be super quick. So, for example, we have a USGS gauge on Waikoloa above the Parker Ranch intake. So what? What does it mean? Well, we can take the data from this station. This is the actual station up there with the stream flowing. It doesn't always flow. We take that continuous record. You know, water levels go up and down. Flow varies with rainfall. You take that continuous record and you develop what's called a flow duration curve. That is the magnitude of flow that occurs over a particular percentage of the time. So this is for the 5 years of stream gauge data we have for this station most recently. We have the magnitude of flow on the y-axis, percent duration on the x-axis. So it's a little bit counterintuitive. The lowest percent duration are the highest flows because you have very few peak flows. They occur a very small amount of time, but the flow that occurs the most are actually the low flows because they are the ones that are at least or exceeded that magnitude of flow. So we take particular parts of this curve that we develop from that continuous record and we generate these statistics. And we I like to talk in cubic feet per second. Some people like million gallons per day. I put them both on. So we have high flow values, medium flow, what we call base flow, or about Q75 here, and low flow values based on the continuous record. So that's how we talk about the amount of water in a stream. We also have this information for other locations, or we would like to develop that for the current climate period by adding stream gauges back into the network. And then I will add that the Hawaii Supreme Court, per the Waiahole decision, emphasized that in-stream flow standards serve as the primary mechanism by which the Commission is to discharge its duty to protect and promote the entire range of public trust purposes dependent upon in-stream flows. And our in-stream flows are based on recreational value, aesthetic value, navigation. I kind of already went through this. Freshwater fish, I love them. Our oopu are so important. We have 5 species of oopu. We can find them all in Kohala somewhere. And we also have native macroinvertebrates, including oiha'a, opaikala ole, hi'iwai, hapawai. And I'll just leave with a few photos of Waikoloa flowing or not flowing, and take questions.
Thank you so much. Okay, mahalo, mahalo. Oh, we have quite a few. Thank you for answering that, because this is one of the questions that came from the audience. Does CWRM monitor Parker Ranch water intakes? And you went over that thoroughly. Thank you. This is education base. Does CWRM have an educational team who can spend time educating our children and community on a more regular and consistent basis regarding everything that you just presented?
You're looking at them. So our surface water, our stream protection and management branch is 7 staff, of which 3 do field work, and we travel a lot. We are looking to expand. We do have funding for additional positions, but we do not have a dedicated education program or team. That's another position we would like to add.
Yeah, that is, our planning branch does go out. They do volunteer for community events, and really all of us, as we have time, if something comes up, we'll go and volunteer, but we don't have a dedicated staff like some of the other divisions like forestry and wildlife or aquatic resources. But I think that is something that we are looking to ask for from the legislature in future sessions, but I believe we may also need to amend our admin rules to put that into under like our purview, right, is to have an educational outreach component. But yeah, we agree with needing one.
Okay, so we heard it several times. We need to advocate with our local legislators. And Aloha Councilmember Hustis, thank you for being here as well. And I see BLNR member, Mr. Riley Smith. So good to have local leadership in the room. Okay, this is actually my question, because I saw interest here by this auntie up here. What is a deep, you mentioned deep monitor well. What is a deep monitor well? What does it do, and why is it important?
So a standard well is constructed to about 1/4 of the depth of the freshwater lens, and that's to withdraw water from the basal lens. So it's not drilled to a depth where you would encounter saltwater or the transition between fresh and saltwater. But a deep monitor well is not drilled for pumpage. It's not drilled for use in terms of extracting water. It's drilled to monitor the health of the aquifer by drilling through that transition between fresh and saltwater to track how the aquifer is doing over time.
Okay, next question. When will in-stream flow standards be established for Waikoloa and Waimea streams within Waimea?
We're working on it. One of the things that we held a public fact gathering about a year ago to take information on the in-stream flow standard assessment report, And one of the things that came out of it was the need for more monitoring, especially above the Hawaii DWS system. So we worked with the county, and they are funding the U.S. Geological Survey stations. A site visit was done 2 weeks ago to get the stations installed, and they should be up within, I would say, probably 4 to 6 months.
So if I can just add to that, typically when in the past, folks, the community, members in the community, or like Earth Justice or organizations have petitioned to amend an in-stream flow standard. They've submitted a petition to us. We respond to that. We start studying the stream, and we develop an in-stream flow standard. In this case, I think it was commission-driven. And so there wasn't really any community organization that we were working with in particular. And so when we came out and did the public fact-gathering meeting, it was kind of like, oh, what's going on, right, with the community? And so I had asked Aaron after that meeting, let's do a little more work and outreach with the community, just help to educate people more. And so this is one of the forums, right, where letting you know that we're working on this. It's coming out. There's a page on our website that you can look up and find more information, find the assessment report that Aaron and his team prepared. And so in the future, we'll take that back to the commission, and now in consideration of getting more data to support it, it'll make for a better decision in the future. So yeah, we're hoping 1 to 2 years, at least.
I also want to add, we have to look at the entirety of the system and the public trust purposes it serves. So understanding, yes, we need an in-stream flow standard, but that quantity is going to be dependent on how much domestic demand is met by the system. What are the potential implications for Department of Hawaiian Homelands? What sort of reservations do they have, and how can water be utilized by DHHL? Because we also want to keep them involved in that decision-making process.
Okay. How often do you adapt or change water? I'm just going to say it, verbatim. How often do you adapt or change the amount of water diverted from streams to fill reservoirs due to less water recharging the aquifer? What is your process for adaptive management?
So we don't manage, we're not the operators of the stream diversion works. We're not the ones opening and closing valves. We're not the ones that are repairing the dams, so to say. So if the question is, how are we adapting by modifying in-stream flow standards, I'll do an example. There's a stream on Maui where we use the best available data from a report USGS produced in 2013 that developed low flow characteristics for that stream. And we established an in-stream flow standard, but we implemented it when the USGS, when we were actually able to add a gauging station on the stream, a continuous record, fully operational gauging station. And we realized that the amount of water that was in the stream under low flow conditions was less than the actual in-stream flow standard. So we are adapting by recommending a different quantity based on new data.
Okay. This is a Kohala Ditch related question. Can you provide an update on the Kohala Ditch and any recent developments to get the Kohala Ditch running again? What is the estimated time for it to become operational?
We don't operate ditches. I would just be grasping at straws. I do visit it occasionally because I do check that the stream diversions are not in operation, and we monitor streams in Kohala regularly, but we're not on the planning or CIP to conversation to develop the ditch.
Okay, I'm going to combine these. I think we only have time for this final question. I'm going to combine kind of a theme of questions. It has to do with developer applications and then trying to balance growing development and growth and water levels and water supply and so forth. So ultimately, what is CWIRM's role to determine when water use is having a detrimental effect on resident populations? What is that process for which you determine that water use is negatively impacting a particular resident community?
So I think the best example of that is looking at West Maui and the Lahaina Aquifer Sector Area designation. That was an instance where, you know, we saw development happening. We saw, and there's almost a one-to-one relationship between ground and surface water. If you pull water from the stream, you're impacting the groundwater. If you pull water from the ground, you're impacting the stream. And so, you know, that was where it was commission initiated to designate the area. And unfortunately, with the fires, the Lahaina fire, and now, you know, understandably, the county is looking for housing. But is it gonna make the situation better or worse, right? You have the folks that are rebuilding, they're relying on the system that was existing prior. But now we're getting more, you know, affordable housing that they want to build, and so it may get worse. And so we need to look at how to maximize, you know, really work closely with the county and others and the private purveyors in making sure that we maximize that use while still protecting the resource. And so it's going to get complicated, and so that's where we're at.
From the streams perspective, while I might be in 200 streams every year, if somebody has an issue with their neighbor or a downstream user or somebody else, file a complaint. We have a complaint form that we will investigate. We will gather information as needed and bring it to the commission's attention for decision making. So that is something we can do, but we need your help. I can't be in every stream always, every day.
I will say though, if you file a complaint, please be specific. The worst, what's hardest for us is when people are like, the stream flow is low. And it's like, okay, you know, there's no rainfall. The stream flow is gonna decrease. But people expect us to know everything, right? Have eyes everywhere. But really, with our limited staff, we rely on the community. And so if you believe that someone's diverting, we ask for your help to track that down. Talk to neighbors, talk to other people, right? Go out, explore where you can. And provide us that information, and we can go out and investigate, get others to help investigate. But yeah, you know, just saying, I think someone's taking water, the stream flow is low. That doesn't help us. We're gonna look at the rainfall, we're gonna look at whatever best available data we have and make it our best judgment whether it's worth it to go out and investigate further low rainfall.
If I will put a plug in for the U.S. Geological Survey's water dashboard, you can pull it up on your phone. You can look at I think there's now 9 stream gauges on Hawaii Island. Your nearest index station will be color-coded by rainfall condition or stream flow conditions. If it's green, it's pretty okay. If it's red, it's bad. If it's bright red, it's super dry. And those are good indicators of what's happening in your region.
Okay, so we need to wrap up. I'm gonna give you a final closing comment. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to follow on Aaron, if I can, I think USGS still has a water alert system. So if you want to be alerted, like on your cell phone, get a text message when a stream flow is low or flooding, you know, if that's a concern for you, like you have a home near a stream, you can sign up for water alerts. You can set thresholds. If it's high, you know, you're going to get a text message. If it's really low, you're going to get a text message. So look for that too. And we can forward the information to Mahina.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm going to give them a final question as kind of like closing remarks. And I just want to invite folks from the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club who's going to share kind of closing remarks. And thank you again for those who stayed with us the whole night. Again, if you didn't register, please go ahead and register your name so that you get copies of these slides and you'll get a link to the question bank and so forth. So thank you again for joining us. So here's a final closing thought, gentlemen. If you can please reflect on this question. What do you see for the future of our wai here in Hawaii? What do you see? What is your hopeful future for wai in Hawaii?
somewhat dependent on where you are. We are in dire straits in some parts of the state with changing climate conditions. Groundwater resources are not going to be as plentiful as they probably once were 100 years ago, and that affects our stream flow. It affects what we do with VAI. But there are places where you can make a difference, whether it's reforesting your backyard, native vegetation is really important. Helping to capture fog drip or that VAI that's blowing in. We don't, we can't control the climate, but we can do our best to adapt to it.
I would say I think we can't not be anything but hopeful. As Aaron mentioned with climate change, seeing the information that we're seeing, I mean, even in the wettest areas like in East Maui, we're seeing some of the lowest stream flows on record. And so, while it may look dire, I'm hopeful that people are going to start waking up and seeing that we need to come together as a community to deal with these situations in a creative manner, as I mentioned earlier, and find solutions to, best utilize our water resources. So yeah, gotta be hopeful.
So again, please help me thank and mahalo Aaron and Dean for sharing all of this rich Ike Mana'o and information. They've given us a copy of their slides and all the links as well. They're gonna help us as Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club get that and then therefore get it to all of you. So please join me in thanking them for coming all the way here, spending all day in the field. I'm a little jealous. And now they have to depart quickly to make sure that they get to their Kona flight or Hilo? Kona.
And we'd also like to thank the Department of Water Supply staff that was with our first meeting there, that joined us here this evening. And as noted, there's also a live stream online going on at the moment too, so a number of people are also participating online right now at live stream. But we'd like to thank all these and those who work with the water, and the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club intends to have other additional workshops or meetings as such to provide more information from other agencies, organizations, individuals as such. So keep in tune. If you're signed up, you'll get a message of when it's coming up. But we just wanted to just real quickly just let you know there's also some other events in Waimea that should be aware of. There's a Waimea community meeting, a discussion on bills 198 and 199 regarding our proposed new commercial and residential. This is right across from Earl's. So the meeting is coming up on May 13th, Tuesday, 5:30 to 7, Community Center. And at that meeting, we'll look at that project, what it's all about, what's happening, what's some proposed and community options to that project and so forth. Also, there's other things coming up in the middle of our island. So Pohakoloa at the PTA and Pohakoloa training area, there's a final EIS that came out. Comments to that, you can find it online. Comments are due the middle of May if you want to comment on that. But otherwise, we'd like to thank everyone for being here and to this gathering. And I'll pass it on to our president of Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club.
Mahalo, mahalo, everybody. As you go home, please take our aloha with you, our thanks, our mahalo nui. Waimea, not just Waimea, but our Waimea is so, so important. It's a gem. And the fact that people have come out the first time to the first Department of Water Supply meeting and this evening indicates that people are interested, that people are concerned about the best of Waimea going forward. It's survival in a good way, in the best way, as opposed to being afraid all the time that we won't have enough water, that our forest is dying, that we are overusing, that we're not doing our part. It's not just their job or their job. Our job is to care and to get out there in a positive way to make sure that Waimea, for your own part, does go forward for our keiki and our keiki's keiki to ola, to live, to survive in the very best way. We have such a gift, and I thank you all, every one of you, for the work that you put in every day, the care that you take every day. I'm grateful to Chelsea, to all of the people, Mahina, Kalani, all of the people in our club and the people who have come forward to help organize this, the first meeting, this one, and those to come. Please keep coming back. Bring people with you. And thank you for taking time, even though your families are at home probably starving at this moment. Mahalo nui. Mahalo nui, and good evening. Safe travels.